Is the screen visible, students?
Yes, sir.
Right.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Just like how we studied the boundary conditions for the electrostatic fields, similarly, we have the boundary conditions for the electromagnetic fields also. That is the boundary between two medium. Right? When the electromagnetic field passes from one medium to another medium, what are the conditions at the boundary? So those conditions we will be deriving under the heading called as magnetic boundary conditions. Right? Here we have the magnetic flux density B and magnetic field density H. They are resolved into two components. One is the horizontal component, which is along the boundary, that is tangential to the boundary. Another one is the normal component, which is perpendicular to the boundary. Okay, so here if we resolve the magnetic flux density at the boundary, we have two components, that is B tan bar, which is the tangential component, and Bn bar, which is the normal component. This is the resultant B bar. Similarly, for the magnetic field intensity also, we have H tan bar, which is the tangential component, and Hn bar, which is the normal component. The resultant or the total net magnetic field intensity is H bar, which is along the diagonal of the rectangle. Surface. Right? It is a Gaussian surface in which the Gauss law can be applied. So such a surface is called as the Gaussian surface. Let us go into the details of the magnetic boundary conditions. The conditions of the magnetic field existing at the boundary of the two media when the magnetic field passes from one medium to other are called boundary conditions, or they are also called as magnetic boundary conditions. So what are magnetic boundary conditions? They are the conditions of the magnetic field existing at the boundary of the two medium when the magnetic field passes from one medium to another medium. When the magnetic field passes from one medium to another medium, whatever are the conditions existing at the boundary between the two medium, right, they are called as the magnetic boundary conditions. To study these conditions of B bar and H bar at the boundary, both the vectors are resolved into two components. That is, vector B bar and H bar, they are resolved into two components. One is tangential to the boundary, another one is normal or perpendicular to the boundary. Just now I explained that it is B tan bar, Bn bar, and H tan bar and Hn bar, the tangential component and the normal components. Consider a boundary with different permeabilities mu1 and mu2 as shown in the figure. Here we are considering two media. One medium is having the permeability mu1, another medium is having the permeability mu2. These two are the two mediums in which the permeabilities are different. Boundary conditions for the normal components. Let us first derive the boundary conditions for normal components. To find the normal component of B bar, select the closed Gaussian surface in the form of a right circular cylinder as shown in the figure. If we want to find the equation for normal component of the magnetic flux density, we are considering a surface, and that surface is nothing but the right circular cylinder. Right circular cylinder is the one in which the axis of the cylinder is perpendicular to the base. Right, axis of the cylinder is perpendicular to the base. It is at right angle to the base, and hence it is called as a right circular cylinder. In this right circular cylinder, we are finding the equation for the normal component of the magnetic flux density, that is Bn bar. According to the Gauss law for the magnetic field, the closed surface integral B bar dot ds bar is equal to 0. Right? For the magnetic field, the Gauss law is given by closed surface integral B bar dot ds bar is equal to 0. That is, the surface integral of magnetic flux density with respect to the surface is equal to 0. Okay. This is the Gauss law for the magnetic field. Take it as equation 1. Here, if we want to evaluate this Gauss law for the magnetic field, that is closed surface integral B bar dot ds bar for this right circular cylinder, where all we have to evaluate, try to recollect what we did for the electrostatic field, where we evaluated that. We evaluated at the which all surfaces of this right circular cylinder? where all we evaluated the integral for the right circular cylinder. Which all surfaces we considered for taking the integral? Can anybody recollect? Can anybody recollect? Which are the surfaces we have to consider for the right circular cylinder to evaluate the total integral over the complete surface of the right circular cylinder? Yes, please. Anybody? Can anyone recollect? Yes, please. We have to evaluate at the top surface, bottom surface, and the lateral surface. Right? Top, bottom, and the curved lateral surface. It's a right circular cylinder, so it is having a curved surface at the lateral side. Right? So we are supposed to find the integral for the top surface, for the bottom surface, and for the curved surface, for the lateral surface. Okay. The surface integral must be evaluated over three surfaces: top, bottom, and lateral. Let the area of the top and bottom be same because they are identical. The top surface and the bottom surface, their area is also identical. Let us take the area as delta S. Top surface area and the bottom surface area. Let us take it as delta S. Let the area of the top and bottom surface be same, equal to delta S. Therefore, we have the total integral given by top integral b bar dot ds bar plus bottom integral b bar dot ds bar plus lateral integral b bar dot ds bar is equal to 0. Okay, so this is the total integral over the entire surface of the right circular cylinder. Take it as equation 2. Here, if we want to find the integral, these two integrals, if we want to evaluate, then where we are considering the that is the boundary condition, that is where we are considering the normal component of the magnetic flux density at the boundary, is it not? We are considering the normal component of the magnetic flux density at the boundary, at the surface, boundary surface, correct? So when we are considering at the boundary surface, what happens to the height delta H? What happens to the height delta H? What will be the condition for delta H or delta H by 2? Because here the upper portion of the right circular cylinder is in medium 1 with the permeability mu1. The lower portion of the right circular cylinder is in the medium 2 with the permeability mu2. So delta H by 2 lies above the boundary and delta H by 2 of the right circular cylinder lies below the boundary. If so, then what will be the condition of delta H by 2 at the boundary? What will be the condition of delta H by 2 at the boundary? For what condition we have to evaluate the integral? Can anybody recollect? Conditions remain the same. When we are taking with the electrostatic fields and electromagnetic fields, condition remains the same, except the formulas will change. Right? What is the condition that we are to consider here? Yes, please. What is the formula that we have to consider? Can anybody tell me? Delta H by 2, what it should be? Whether it should be 0 or infinity or something else? Delta H by 2. Yes, anyone? Delta H by 2 should be 0. If we are evaluating at the boundary, is it not? We are finding at the boundary, so delta H by 2 should be 0. Delta H by 2 tends to 0. And that should be the condition if we want to find the normal component of the flux density at the boundary. As delta H tends to 0, the cylinder tends to boundary and only top and bottom surfaces contribute to the surface integral. Because delta H by 2 tends to 0, the lateral area will become 0. Right? And we have only the top surface area and the bottom surface area. Top surface and the bottom surface area, lateral surface area is becoming 0 because of delta H tending to 0 or delta H by 2 tending to 0. The cylinder tends to boundary and the top and bottom surfaces contribute to surface integral. Hence, the surface integrals are calculated for top and bottom surfaces only. Surface integrals are calculated for only the top surface and the bottom surface. These surfaces are very small. The surfaces that we are considering here, the top surface and the bottom surface, they are very small, right? And hence, the normal component of B bar, that is Bn1, and normal component Bn2 in medium 1 and medium 2 respectively, they are as good as constants, right? As both the surfaces are very small, we can assume Bn1 and Bn2 as constant over the surfaces, right? Conditions are same. The same conditions existed for the electrostatic fields also. We have assumed the same conditions there also. We can assume Bn1 and Bn2 constant over the surfaces because the surface is very small. So Bn1 normal component and Bn2 in medium 1 and medium 2, they can be assumed as constants. Okay. Once we assume them as constants, then for top surface, top closed surface integral B bar dot ds bar, that is this portion, this will be equal to Bn1 over the top closed surface integral ds bar. Bn1 we can take it outside because it's a constant, we have taken it outside. Therefore, this will become Bn1 delta S. Bn1 delta S. Take it as equation 3. Bn1 delta S because ds is considered as delta S, small surface area, small incremental area, that is delta S for ds bar. Similarly, for the bottom surface, we have the closed bottom integral B bar dot ds bar is equal to Bn2 closed bottom integral ds bar. Again, it's this portion that we are evaluating. Bn2 is the normal component of flux density in the medium 2. In the medium 1, it is Bn1. In the medium 2, below the boundary, it is Bn2. Correct? Therefore, Bn2 we will take it outside. It will become Bn2 into closed surface bottom integral ds bar. That is Bn2 delta S. Take it as equation 4. Okay. Hope you are following here, students. Any difficulty up till here? Any difficulty up till here, students? Any difficulty up till here? Anything not followed up till here? Are you here, students? Ilyas Ahmad? Ilyas Ahmad? Sania? Understood or not? Sania? Students, have you understood or not?
Yes, sir.
Karthik?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay. Pallavi, fine.
Yes,
Ilyas Ahmad? Okay.
Yes, sir.
Sania? Okay. Sania, understanding? Sania? Atia? Understanding?
Yes,
Atia?
sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay, fine. We'll proceed. So it will be taken outside Bn2 into closed bottom integral ds bar, that will be Bn2 delta S. Take it as equation 4. Now for the lateral surfaces, as we are taking delta H tends to 0 or delta H by 2 tends to 0, the lateral area will be 0 because delta H is 0, height is 0, that is the area is 0, and hence the lateral integral of B bar dot ds bar is also 0. Okay. Now if we substitute these equations, that is equation 3, 4 and 5 in equation 2, this is the main equation, basic equation. If we substitute equations 3, 4 and 5 in equation 2, that is top integral, bottom integral and lateral integral, then we'll get, that is top integral is Bn1 delta S, then bottom integral is Bn2 delta S. But note that here, when Bn1 we are taking, it is from one direction and Bn2 in the other direction. Therefore, those two will be opposite. That is, here, if we put those values, we'll be getting Bn1 delta S minus Bn2 delta S. Normal component in medium 2 is entering the surface, while in medium 1, the component is leaving the surface. If we are considering Bn1 as entering here, right, in the first medium, and in the other medium it will be leaving the surface or leaving the medium. Okay. Similarly, Bn2, it is entering for the top and it is leaving for the bottom. So if you are considering Bn1 as entering, Bn2 will be leaving the surface. Correct? Because Bn1 is above the boundary, it is entering into the boundary, whereas Bn2 is leaving the boundary. Correct? Bn2 is in the medium 2, Bn1 is in the medium 1. Yes. So we are getting Bn1 is equal to minus of Bn2. Bn1 is equal to minus of Bn2, and hence the formula will be Bn1 delta S minus Bn2 delta S. That will be equal to 0. Lateral area is 0. Lateral integral is 0. Therefore, we have only top integral and bottom integral. Bn1 delta S minus Bn2 delta S will be equal to 0. That is Bn1 delta S, Bn1 and Bn2 are in the opposite direction. From equation 6, we can write Bn1 delta S is equal to Bn2 delta S. Because this minus this is 0, I can perform Bn1 delta S is equal to Bn2 delta S. That is Bn1 is equal to Bn2, because delta S and delta S will cancel. Finally, we will get Bn1 is equal to Bn2. Take it as equation 7. What it indicates here, Bn1 is equal to Bn2, the normal component at the boundary between the two medium with permeabilities mu1 and mu12 is continuous at the boundary. Right? The meaning of Bn1, normal component in medium 1, is equal to normal component of flux density in medium 2. It indicates that the flux density in medium 1, it is continuous with the flux density in medium 2. That is, normal component of B bar is continuous at the boundary because Bn1 is equal to Bn2. We also know that the relation between magnetic flux density and the magnetic field intensity, that is, B bar is equal to mu H bar. B bar is equal to mu into H bar. If we substitute B bar is equal to mu H bar here in the above equation, then what we will get? Bn1 is equal to Bn2. It is Bn1 is equal to mu1 Hn1. Bn2 is mu2 Hn2. Mu1 Hn1 is equal to mu2 Hn2. Correct? Instead of Bn1, I will substitute as mu1 Hn1. Instead of Bn2, I will substitute as mu2 Hn2. That means mu1 Hn1 will be equal to mu2 Hn2. That is, mu1 Hn1 is equal to mu2 Hn2. Rearranging, I will get Hn1 by Hn2 will be equal to mu2 by mu1. That is, mu is mu naught into mu r. Mu is mu naught into mu r. Mu naught into mu r2 divided by mu naught into mu r1. Absolute permeability, mu naught and mu naught will cancel. Therefore, finally, we will get the equation Hn1 by Hn2 is equal to mu2 by mu1. That is equal to mu r2 by mu r1, which indicates that the normal component of H bar is not continuous at the boundary. Right? If we look at the Bn1 equal to Bn2, it is continuous. That is, normal component of the flux density is continuous at the boundary, whereas normal component of the magnetic field intensity is not continuous at the boundary, because Hn1 by Hn2 is not equal to 1. It is equal to mu2 by mu1, or it is equal to mu r2 by mu r1. Hence, the H bar component, normal component of H bar is not continuous at the boundary. Clear here? Clear up till this step, students? Everybody are clear up till this step? Everybody followed up till this step? Any difficulties here? Any questions? Any questions up till this step? Following, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. This was the boundary conditions for normal components. That is, we evaluated Bn1, Bn2, and Hn1, Hn2. Similarly, let us find out the boundary conditions for tangential component. That is, B tan 1, B tan 2, H tan 1, and H tan 2. Tangential components at the boundary between two media. Here we have to consider the Ampere's circuital law. According to the Ampere's circuital law, we know that the closed line integral of H bar dot dl bar is equal to I. The closed line integral H bar dot dl bar is equal to I. Consider a rectangular closed path ABCDA as shown in the figure. For evaluating the boundary conditions for the tangential component, we are considering the rectangular path A to B, B to C, C to D, and D to A, A, B, C, D, A. Right? Here we are marking 2 points at the boundary. One is point number 1 and point number 2, or you can take it the other way. This you can mark it as point number 1, the other one you can take it as point number 2, the two nodes at the boundary 1 and 2. Okay. Consider rectangular closed path ABCDA as shown. It is traced in the clockwise direction. We are moving in the clockwise direction ABCDA. That is the direction in which we are moving. Here if we look into this figure, ABCDA in clockwise direction. Correct? This closed path is placed in a plane normal to, that is, if we integrate h bar dot dl bar, we'll get the total integral. How to evaluate it? The line integral. It is a closed line integral. Therefore, we have to evaluate from A to B, B to 1, if you take it as 1, then 1 to C, C to D, D to 2, and 2 to A. In the diagram, they have shown like this, but it is taken opposite. So, B to A to B, B to 1, 1 to C, C to D, D to 2, 2 to A. This is the total line integral over the surface ABCDA taken in clockwise direction. That is A to B h bar dot dl bar, B to 1 h bar dot dl bar, 1 to C, then C to D, D to 2, 2 to A, h bar dot dl bar is equal to I. Okay, take it as equation 10. Now from the figure, it is clear that the closed path is placed in such a way that its two sides A, B and CD are parallel to the tangential direction. AB and CD. AB and CD, they are tangential or parallel to the, that is, boundary, correct? Whereas AD and BC, they are perpendicular to the boundary. Simple. AB and CD, they are tangential to the boundary or parallel to the boundary. AD and BC, they are normal to the boundary. The rectangular path is an elementary rectangular path with the height delta h and width delta w. The width of this rectangle is delta w, its height is delta h. Again, half portion of this rectangle is above the boundary and exactly half portion is below the boundary. Therefore, the height from A to 1 or B to 2 is delta h by 2, and the height from 1 to D and 2 to C is delta h by 2. Thus, overall small width delta w, h bar can be assumed constant. The width delta w is very small, this width delta w, and hence the tangential component can be assumed constant throughout the surface delta w. Because it's a small surface, so the variations will be very less. The variations in the tangential component will be very less. It is assumed as constant. H bar can be assumed constant, say h tan 1 in medium 1 and h tan 2 in medium 2, they are assumed as constants. Similarly, for the height delta h by 2, for the height, if we are considering the height delta h by 2, here also the height is very small. We are considering the height, but the height of this rectangle is very small, that is being considered, and hence the delta h by 2 is assumed to be constant. The variation in the height is very less, is almost constant. Similarly, over a small height delta h by 2, h bar can be assumed constant, say hn1 and hn2. They are assumed as constants. Okay. Now assume that k bar is a surface current normal to the path. We are assuming the current k bar which is normal to the path. So there is a current k bar here, k bar which is normal to this current path ABCD. Okay. So when you are considering the current normal to this path, the product of the current and the width, we are considering the product of the current and the width. Here, if we look at this formula, which is the product of current and the width, it's clear that normal and tangential components in medium 1 and medium 2 are in the opposite directions. Normal and tangential component in medium 1 and medium 2, they are in opposite directions. We'll understand that when we write the formula for these. That is, equation 10 will be modified as, this equation will be modified as, if we look at the Ampere's circuital law, the magnetic field intensity is proportional directly to the current. Yes or no? The magnetic field intensity H bar is directly proportional to the current I. Therefore, if I take the product of the current and the width, that means I have to multiply the magnetic field intensity also with the certain length or with the certain width. Current is directly proportional to the magnetic field intensity according to the Ampere's circuital law. Hence, if we perform the product of the current with the width, I have to also perform the product of the magnetic field intensity with the length or with the width. Correct? That is K, I have taken it as the current which is normal to the path A, B, C, D, A. So that current, if I multiply with the width delta W or dW, then I have to multiply the components of H bar with the width or with the height, whichever we are taking. If you are taking the width, then it is delta W. If you are taking the height component, that will be delta H by 2. Let us do that. K dot dW is equal to H tan 1. This will be H tan 1 A to B. H tan 1, come to the figure. It is H tan 1 here. A, B, C, D, A. H tan 1 for the A to B. Then width is delta W. So H tan 1 into delta W. Right? If we go from B to 2 or B to 1 here, they have considered this as 1 and this as 2. B to 1, then it will be delta H by 2. Delta H by 2. Right? That is from B to 2. Okay, consider that. So it is plus Hn1 delta H by 2 normal component. First we are taking the A to B, means it is tangential component here. A to B is the tangential component. If we go from B to 2, it is a normal component multiplied with delta H by 2. And B1 to C, 1 to C, it is also delta H by 2 multiplied with the normal component in the second medium. Normal component in the second medium. Okay. Then if you go from C to D, this will be minus of A to B. It will be minus of A to B, right? Because this is in medium 1, this is in medium 2. See the direction: A to B, B to 1, 1 to C, C to D. C to D is opposite to that of A to B. Therefore, when we are considering the polarity of C to D, the sign, then we have to take it as opposite to that of A to B. Yes. That is H tan 1 delta W plus Hn1 1 to that is A to B, B to 1 it is, that is Hn1 delta H by 2. Then 1 to C, it is Hn2 delta H by 2 in the second medium, minus H tan 2 delta W. If you look from here, this one C to D, it is minus H tan 2 delta W. Is in the second medium tangential component, minus H tan 2 delta W. Then D to 1 is normal component in the second medium. Right, normal component in the second medium, so it will be normal component minus sign, because A, B, C, B to C is from top to bottom, D to C, A is from bottom to top. B to C is from top to bottom, D to A is from bottom to top. Hence it is minus sign. Okay. Similarly, 1 to A is also with the minus sign. Then we'll complete the formula. Minus H tan 2 delta W, then minus Hn2 delta H by 2. That is minus Hn2 delta H by 2 is from here, D to 2, minus Hn2 Hn2 delta H by 2. Similarly, this will be Hn1 delta H by 2 minus Hn1 delta H by 2 between 2 to A, minus Hn1 delta H by 2. Take it as equation number 11. Next, if we want to evaluate at the boundary condition, we have to consider delta H tends to 0. That is, delta H tends to 0 means if we substitute here, we'll get K dot dW is equal to H tan 1 delta W. This is 0, this is 0, right? And minus Hn1, this will become 0, this is 0. Wherever it is delta H, that will all become 0. Therefore, it will be H tan 1 delta W minus H tan 2 delta W. Then H tan 1 minus H tan 2, take delta W common. Delta W and dW will cancel because both are same. dW is as good as delta W. Therefore, the equation will be H tan 1 minus H tan 2 is equal to K. In vector form, if we want to express this in the vector form, then we have to write it as H tan 1 minus H tan 2 bar. This is equal to AN12 bar into or cross product with the K bar, because AN12 is the unit vector in the direction normal to the boundary from medium 1 to medium 2. Right? AN12 is the direction and K bar is the magnitude. K bar is the current. It is a current perpendicular to the rectangular surface ABCD A. So we have the magnitude and the direction. then AN12 is the unit vector in the direction normal to the boundary from medium 1 to medium 2. Okay, take this as equation 13. For B bar, the tangential component is related with permeability of the medium from using equation 12. If we consider equation 12 here, B is equal to mu into H. B is equal to mu into H. That is, H will be equal to B by mu. Am I right? B is equal to mu into H, or H will be equal to B by mu. So B tan 1 by mu 1 minus B tan 2 by mu 2, that will be equal to K. Right? Then consider a special case that the boundary is free of current. There's one more condition we are considering, that is the boundary free of current. That means the medium that we are considering, they are not the conductors, they are insulators. They don't conduct the current. Under that condition, we have H tan 1 minus H tan 2 is equal to 0. That is, K is 0, current is 0. H tan 1 minus H tan 2 is equal to 0, or H tan 1 is equal to H tan 2. H tan 1 is equal to H tan 2. For the tangential component of B bar, similarly we can write B is equal to mu into H, or H is equal to B by mu. That is, B tan 1 by mu 1 equal to or minus B tan 2 by mu 2 equal to 0, or B tan 1 by mu 1 is equal to B tan 2 by mu 2. B tan 1 by B tan 2 is equal to, rearranging, you will get mu 1 by mu 2, that is equal to mu R1 by mu R2, because mu is equal to mu 0 into mu R. Mu 0 and mu 0 will cancel, we will get mu R1 by mu R2. Okay. This is for the tangential component of the magnetic flux density. Okay, tangential component of the magnetic flux density, B tan 1 by B tan 2, it is discontinuous at the boundary, because B tan 1 by B tan 2 is not equal to 1. B tan 1 by B tan 2 is equal to mu 1 by mu 2, that is equal to mu R1 by mu R2. Hence, we say that the flux density B bar, tangential component of flux density B bar at the boundary is discontinuous. Here we are considering the normal component Bn1, which is at the angle alpha 1 with the, Bn1 in medium 1, it's at the angle alpha 1 with Bn1, normal component, and B2 bar, it is at the angle alpha 2 with the normal component Bn2. Right? B1 is in medium 1 and B2 is in the medium 2. Okay. Then if we take this angle alpha, if we take tan alpha 1, it will be opposite side by adjacent side. It is B tan 1 by Bn1. Similarly, if we take tan alpha 2, it will be opposite side by adjacent side. That is B tan 2 divided by Bn2. B tan 2 by Bn2. In medium 1, we have tan alpha 1 is equal to B tan 1 by Bn1. Then similarly, in the medium 2, tan alpha 2 is equal to B tan 2 by Bn2. If we divide one equation by another, then tan alpha 1 by tan alpha 2 is equal to B tan 1 by Bn1 divided by B tan 2 by Bn2, or that will be cross multiplied. We will get B tan 1 by Bn1 into Bn2 by B tan 2. We know that Bn1 is equal to Bn2. So this Bn1 is equal to Bn2. They are at the same boundary. They are the normal components, right? So whatever is moving from Bn2 here, medium 2, the same will move into this medium 1 also. So Bn1 and Bn2 both are same. So as a Bn1 is equal to Bn2, then substituting that, we get tan alpha 1 by tan alpha 2 is equal to B tan 1 divided by B tan 2. It is tan 2 here. Just make the correction. Tan alpha 1 by tan alpha 2 is equal to B tan 1 by B tan 2. Bn1 and Bn2 will get cancelled. This is equal to mu R1 by mu R2. Why? Because tan alpha 1 is proportional to mu R1. Tan of alpha 1 is proportional to the relative permeability of medium 1. As the relative permeability changes, the alpha angle also changes. The angle of refraction from one medium to another medium, it changes, right? Angle alpha 2 also changes. So tan alpha 1 is proportional to mu R1. Tan alpha 2 is proportional to mu R2. Tan alpha 1 by tan alpha 2 will be equal to mu R1 by mu R2. And hence we are also getting the equation tan alpha 1 by tan alpha 2 is equal to B tan 1 by B tan 2, that is equal to mu R1 by mu R2. Okay. So this is about the boundary conditions, students. Any difficulty here, students, up till now? Any difficulty up till now? We have gone through the boundary conditions. First, we evaluated the normal component of the boundary conditions, that is both for the magnetic flux density and the magnetic field intensity. Then we evaluated the tangential component at the boundary both for the flux density and for the magnetic field intensity. Now, if we look here, that is H tan 1 is equal to H tan 2. This is continuous. Tangential component, magnetic field intensity is continuous at the boundary. But if we consider the flux density, it is discontinuous. H tan 1 by H tan 2 is equal to 1, or H tan 1 is equal to H tan 2. The magnetic field intensity is continuous at the boundary, whereas the magnetic flux density is discontinuous at the boundary. Okay, tangential component. Any questions here, students? Any problem in understanding this topic? Is it understood here? This derivation. So this derivation is important from examination point of view. Repeatedly, it has been asked in examination. Make this derivation perfect. So either they may ask the boundary conditions for the electrostatic fields or the boundary condition for the electromagnetic fields, right? Or they may ask in both electrostatics the question on boundary condition, and in both electromagnetics also the question on boundary condition. That is also possible. So anyhow, it is repeatedly asked in the examination. Make it perfect. Okay. So is it understood here, students? This derivation. This derivation is clear here. Yes, please. Samir.
Yes, sir.
Samir Ahmad. Okay, fine, Ilyas. Samir Ahmad. Samir Ahmad. Understood? Tejas. Tejas. Is it clear, Tejas?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir. Clear, sir.
Right. Pallavi. Understood?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Rohan. Rohan Timsani.
Yes, sir.
Understood? Okay.
Yes.
Right. Shubham. Shubham Bekwadkar.
Yes, sir.
Clear, Shubham?
Yes, sir.
Okay. We'll proceed further. Next is the magnetic circuits. As we know, there is an electric circuit. Similarly, there is magnetic circuit also. There is an analogy between the electric circuit and the magnetic circuit. In the magnetic circuit, we'll be finding the magnetic flux and the magnetic field intensity. Okay. So as there is electromotive force, can anybody define electromotive force? How do you define electromotive force in electrostatics? Electromotive force, or what is the definition of electromotive force? How do you define EMF, electromotive force? The change in potential which causes the current, right? The change in potential or the difference in potential between the 2 points which makes the current to flow is called as the electromotive force. What is the unit of electromotive force? EMF unit? Volt. Yes or no? Unit of electromotive force is volt. Similarly, we have the magnetomotive force, which is given by the equation EM is equal to N into I. Is number of turns into current flowing through the coil. That is the closed line integral H bar dot dl bar. This is the equation for the magnetomotive force. And the unit of the magnetomotive force is ampere turn. Ampere turn. Okay, it is the product of the number of turns, right, and the current flowing through the coil. That is what is called as the magnetomotive force. Then in electric circuit, the resistance is given by the ratio of voltage to current. R is equal to V by I. In magnetic circuits, the reluctance is the ratio of the magnetomotive force to the flux. Reluctance is given by EM divided by phi. That is magnetomotive force divided by flux gives the reluctance. In resistance, it is voltage divided by current. Okay. The reluctance is measured in terms of ampere turn per Weber, because the unit of the magnetomotive force is ampere turn, the unit of flux is Weber, hence the unit of reluctance is ampere turn per Weber. Fine. The resistance in electric circuit is expressed in terms of conductivity, right? R is equal to L divided by sigma S. We know this relation, resistance is equal to L divided by sigma S, where L is the length in meter, S is the cross sectional area in meter square, and sigma is the conductivity of the material. Right? L divided by sigma into S. L is the length, S is the cross sectional area, and sigma is the conductivity. Conductivity is the reciprocal of resistivity. Yes. In case of magnetic circuits, we can define reluctance in a similar way as reluctance is given by L divided by mu S. L divided by mu S, where mu is the permeability and S is the cross sectional area. R is given by L upon sigma S in electric circuits. In magnetic circuits, reluctance is given by L upon mu into S, where L is the length of the conductor, mu is the permeability of the conductor, and S is the cross sectional area of the conductor. Okay. Then we have some more other comparisons between electric circuit and magnetic circuit. In electric circuit, we have conductivity sigma. Here we are having permeability mu. Here in electric circuit, we have field intensity E. There is field intensity H bar or H in magnetic circuits. Current density is given by J is equal to I by S sigma E. In electrostatics, right? That is current divided by cross sectional area. This sigma is the conductivity. J is the current density, sigma is the conductivity, and E is the electric field intensity. Similarly, here we have flux density B is equal to phi by S. That is flux divided by flux per unit area, flux density. Okay, Weber per meter square. Then in electrostatics, we have a reciprocal of resistance as conductance, whereas in magnetic circuits, we have reciprocal of reluctance as permeance. Ohm's law, it is V is equal to I into R. Then here Ohm's law in magnetic circuits is EM, magnetomotive force, is equal to flux into reluctance. Flux into reluctance. Okay. Then Kirchhoff's law, it is summation of I is equal to 0. That is Kirchhoff's first law, current law. Then Kirchhoff's second law, that is summation of EMF, that is equal to 0. The sum of the product of the current and the resistances, that is equal to 0, which is the Kirchhoff's second law. Here we are having Kirchhoff's first law, summation of flux is equal to 0. Then summation MMF is equal to summation phi into S, that is summation H in dot L or H into L. This is the Kirchhoff's second law for the magnetic circuits. Okay. So we have compared the electrostatic circuits or electric circuits with the magnetic circuits. These are few of the comparisons. In examination, if the question is asked, then they will be asking the comparison between the electric circuits and the magnetic circuits. You have to draw this table and write the comparison between the two. That is comparison between electric circuit and the magnetic circuits. Fine. We have few more comparison between electric circuit and magnetic circuit. In the electric circuit, the current is nothing but the flow of electrons, whereas in magnetic circuit, the magnetomotive force, the flux gets established and does not flow in the sense in which the current flows. Right? In electric circuit, we have the flow of electrons, whereas in magnetic circuit, we have the flux. In electric circuit, the energy must be supplied so as to maintain the flow of current. But here in magnetic circuit, we are not maintaining the flux. Right? We are creating the magnetic flux in the magnetic circuits. Then resistance and conductivity, they change due to the temperature in electric circuit, whereas the reluctance, permeance, and the permeability, they are dependent on the flux density in the magnetic circuits. Then electric lines of flux are not closed. If you consider the electric lines of flux between the two, that is positive and negative charges, right? They are not closed. The flux will be, electric flux will be either from positive to negative, but it is not from negative to positive. Right? It is not closed. But if you considering the pole, as we know that the magnetic poles does not exist independently. They are together, north and south. So we have from north to south the flux lines, and thus flux also return from south back to north pole. So it is a complete closed path from north to south and south to north in case of magnetic circuits. So these are few of the comparisons between the electric circuit and the magnetic circuits. Right? Is this clear, students? The comparison between electric circuit and magnetic circuit? Any difficulties here? Any questions here between on the comparison between electric circuit and magnetic circuit? I hope it is understood to everyone. Yes, please. Sai Prakash. Sai Prakash.
Yes, sir. Understood. Understood.
Okay. Right. Shraddha. Shraddha.
Yes,
Comparison
sir.
is clear, Shraddha? Comparison is clear between electric circuit and magnetic circuit?
Yes, sir.
Okay, fine. I'll just give a recap of the today's class, students, quickly. In today's class, we have studied the magnetic boundary conditions. We have found the boundary conditions for normal components, then boundary conditions for the tangential components. Then we have covered the topic on magnetic circuits, that is first the comparison between the electric circuit and the magnetic circuits. Right? So that's all for the today's class. In the next class, we will be taking up the topic on inductance, right? Inductance and mutual inductance. Those topics will cover in the next class. Okay. Thank you.